Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to my channel and possibly becoming a patron of my YouTube channel. It would help me out a lot to be able to produce these videos. Now this is a tutorial video for the RadioMaster Zorro. Now what I'm going to go through in this video is a thing called flight modes. Now with flight modes we can see on the front of our radio which flight mode we're in, whether we're armed or disarmed, or in which flight mode, acro, horizon, or stabilized, or whatever. But we can also assign global variables to them. Now I just want to quickly explain what global variables are. Is if we want to set up a rate for our ailerons, so we want to have different rates for different modes. Now that may be useful for glider pilots. So if we're in a certain mode, if we're in a cruising mode, we only want the ailerons to deflect very slightly, or if we want to suddenly start doing acro with that glider, we want to have more throw on the ailerons. So I'm going to stick with ailerons and show you this. But it means all we need to do is put a global variable in, put that value in, and we can use that value in any of the mixes on the radio. Then when we change mode, if we did a different rate or a different global variable, it will pick that global variable up. So the easiest way for me to explain this is to go into EdgeTX companion and show you it there. I will go through it on the radio so you can have a look in case you don't use the companion program to do this. So let's switch over to the computer. Now we can see I've already set up a model that I want to use for this. And if we go to flight modes, now I just want to go quickly through them. The first flight mode starts with 0. So we've got flight mode 0, which is horizon. We've got disarmed, mode 1, mode 2, angle, and we've got acro mode. Now these could apply to an aeroplane because really you would use this for an aeroplane. You wouldn't use this for drones. Now I've set the modes up in this order. It's so that when we are disarmed, the flight modes will only display disarmed. It doesn't matter which mode we're in, it will always show disarmed. So it has to be put in this order. It looks like you really should have them in the order, disarmed and then armed and whatever, but you don't. If you do it in this order, you will see you're always disarmed. As soon as you arm, it will then show you which mode you are actually in. Now, let's switch back over to the computer. So, we are in the flight modes, and as I said, we've got horizon, disarm, we've got angle, acro, and we are ready to go. Now the bit that we need to look at is down here. So what I've done, the global variable 1, I've typed in AIL for aileron. Now I'm going to set some strange figures up in here. It's just so that I can demonstrate it to you, then you can see it's definitely working. You wouldn't actually use these numbers that I'm putting in. Now if we are under flight mode 0, you can see I've put 100% in. So your first flight mode 0, now this value will automatically be brought over to every other flight mode unless you change something, which is what I'm going to show you. So you would always have, in my opinion, the first mode 0 must be 100%. So now if we switch over to disarm, you can see at the bottom here, it's automatically picked up the AIL for aileron. And here it says value of source, flight mode 0 value. So we can change this to any of the flight mode values we want to. And you can see that it's actually picked up the 100%. So what I'm saying here is that if we are disarmed, we would be able to move the full throw of the aileron so that we could check them to see if they were stalling or whatever. So that you can see, we can change the value that we're putting in on that flight mode. So there, in disarm, I wanted it to show of the full throw, so I could see the actual throws of the aeroplane. If we go to angle mode, you can see in here, which still picks up the narrative AIL in global variable 1. And I'm now ticked, I want to put my own value in there. And so I've put 70. So whenever we are in angle mode, the throws will only be 70%. That's it. So we've now specified that mode, that's what it will be. If we go back to the computer and go to acro, you can see I've said here, it's picked up the narrative, and I've said own source, and I've put it for 40%. Now I've done that just for demonstration purposes. So now we set up our global variables. If we go to all the other ones, just have a look, you'll see they all say flight mode 0, because obviously it's got to pick a value up from somewhere. That's what I made the horizon mode, the default value of 100. So now, what do we need to do now to complete this? So we need to go into our inputs. Now, if we go to the aileron there, I'm going to double click it and bring it up. You can see that we've got a weight of 100, which is normal, positive weight of 100. So how do we get that global variable? Well, all we do is we tick here and you can see there's the global variable. So we could obviously choose others. We don't want the negative version, not that version. We want this one. So now that's all we need to do. So depending on which mode we're in, our ailerons will only move a certain amount. So let's demonstrate that. Let's go and have a look to see if that's actually working. If we simulate the radio, let me just go over to the screen at the bottom. So it takes a little while to load. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to go over to the screen here so that we can see the ailerons will be the channel. My channel mapping is AETR, so it should be this one we're looking out for to move. So we are in disarm mode. So if I move my aileron stick, you can see we have full throw. Now, as soon as I arm, we're in acro mode, which is the switch SP, I think. And if now in acro mode, we set it up to be 40%. And there you can go. You can see our aileron is only moving 40%. If we go to angle mode, we should be now moving at 70%. We're in horizon mode, and you can see we can move our ailerons 100%. So you can see how useful this is. It makes it so much easier to do adjustments across multiple flight modes. And you just need to put the global variables into the inputs. Now in the inputs, you shouldn't change the orders. The only things I put into inputs are the expo and any rates that I'm going to use. So you would put those figures in the global you would change the weight to a global variable and pick that global variable up. Now let's take a look at flight modes and global variables on our Zorro radio. I'm going to hit the model key. We're going to go across until we get to flight modes. Now you can see flight mode 0. If I push enter, we can edit it. Now it says own here, and we put 100 in, but obviously this one is carried across to all other flight modes. So you can see I just named it and I put the value in there and gave it a name. Now if we return back, we go into our disarmed mode, we go into our flight mode 1. You can see that it's picking up the global variable 1, and so it's picking up 100%. Then if we go to angle, now here we've given it its own value. So we put 70 in. And if we come back out and we go to acro, and you can see we've put its own value in. We've named it and put its own value in. And if we come out, if we go to flight mode 4, you can see it's automatically picked up global variable 1 from flight mode, a global variable 1 from flight mode 0, and that will be the same for all the other flight modes. So it does look a little bit different on the radio, but that is the gist of it. So you would just click on the flight mode you want to alter, and you go down and you put the variable in. If you don't put its own variable in, it will copy the one from this mode, flight mode 0. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and as I say, there are lots of more uses for global variables. But let's just give you a background in how to do it. You wouldn't generally use these with a drone. Mostly it's fixed wing pilots who will use the global variables. Well, I hope you found the video useful and interesting, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below, because I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Happy flying. Bye for now.